Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to crack open one of the most famous and maybe most misunderstood texts in history, the Kama Sutra. And trust me, we're going way beyond its popular reputation to uncover a surprisingly deep philosophical guide on how to live a truly balanced and purposeful life. But before we dive in, let me ask you something. When you're faced with a big life decision, what really drives you? Is it the search for pleasure, the need for wealth and security, or is it a sense of duty? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Well, this is the exact dilemma that the Kama Sutra tackles head on. You see, ancient Indian philosophy actually gives us a framework for this. It lays out three fundamental goals that pretty much shape every human life. Together, they're known as the Trivarga, which literally just means the group of three. Let's break down what they are. Okay, first step is Kama. Now, this is the one everyone thinks they know, but it is so much bigger than you might imagine. Kama isn't just physical pleasure. It covers all sensory enjoyment, desire, love, emotional connection, even just appreciating art and beauty. It's basically the entire world of what we want and what we're passionate about. Next, we've got Artha. This is the super practical side of life. Artha is all about the pursuit of wealth, security, and the material stuff you need to, function and thrive. Think of your job, your finances, your home. It's the foundation you build a stable life on. And finally, there's Dharma. Now, this is a huge concept, but you can basically think of it as living a good, righteous life. It's about your moral duties, your responsibilities to your family and to society, and following a path that helps keep everything in order. So, you have these three big aims: pleasure, wealth, and duty. But here's the key question: are they all equal? Well, the text is really clear on this one. The answer is absolutely not. It actually lays out a very specific hierarchy, kind of like a ladder of priorities that we're supposed to follow. So, the standard pecking order looks like this. At the very top, you have Dharma, your duty. Right below that is Artha, or wealth, and at the bottom of the ladder is Kama, or pleasure. The message is pretty straightforward. Your sense of duty should guide how you get wealth, and that wealth then makes it possible to enjoy life's pleasures. The preceding one is superior to the following. But what's really fascinating here is the logic behind this ranking. It's not just some random moral rule, it's incredibly practical. The logic is actually just common sense when you think about it. It's like building a house. Living an ethical, righteous life, that's your dharma, is the solid foundation. On top of that strong foundation, you can build up your wealth and security, your artha. And only when you have that stability can you really truly enjoy the pleasures and passions of life, your kama. Okay, so that seems pretty clear, right? A nice, neat moral ladder for how to live a good life. But this is where the Kama Sutra throws us a total curveball. That seemingly absolute rule, it turns out it has a huge exception. Yeah, this whole hierarchy, it doesn't apply to everybody. The text actually acknowledges that for some people, the priorities need to be completely different. And here it is, the big twist. For certain people, the hierarchy gets flipped on its head. Wealth, Artha, jumps all the way to the number one spot, becoming even more important than dharma, or duty. But look closely, what stays exactly the same? Pleasure. Kama is always last. This just begs the question, right? Who are these special cases? Who on earth gets a pass to put wealth even above their moral and social duties? Well, the text gives us two very specific examples, the king and the courtesan. And the reason for their exception isn't about being greedy or selfish, it's about a super pragmatic understanding of their unique roles in society. So let's look at the king. A king's number one duty, his ultimate dharma, is to keep the entire kingdom stable and in order. So how does he do that? Well, he needs a full treasury to pay for everything, and he needs an army to protect people. Both of those things require a massive amount of wealth. So for the king, going after Artha, wealth, isn't selfish. It's the only tool he has to fulfill his highest duty. His job is to be wealthy. Now, the logic for the courtesan is just as practical, just on a more personal level. The text puts it bluntly. Her survival, her entire livelihood, is tied to wealth. She has to prioritize Artha simply to live. It even says she would pass up a lover she actually desires for a wealthy client, not out of greed, but because of pure necessity. In her line of work, getting paid is the number one existential priority. So, what's the big takeaway here? Why are we talking about ancient kings and courtesans? Well, because this isn't just some dusty old historical fact. This entire framework gives us a really sophisticated way to think about our own lives right now. So, to sum it all up, for most of us, the path is supposed to be duty, then wealth, then pleasure. But for those very specific roles where your duty is wealth, or where your survival literally depends on it, the order flips. It's a really powerful example of flexible ethics. And that right there is the real lesson. The Kama Sutra isn't handing down a bunch of rigid, inflexible rules. It's teaching us a much smarter, more nuanced idea that our priorities and our ethics are all about context. The right thing to do really depends on your specific role and your responsibilities in the world. And that leaves us with one last question, and this one is for you to think about. Consider all the different hats you wear in your life. As a parent, a child, an employee, a friend, how do the duties of those specific roles change your own personal hierarchy of what comes first? Duty, wealth, or pleasure? It's a timeless question hiding in a text full of surprises. Thanks for listening.